In this video, I'm going to talk about self-directing as a voiceover. Being able to self-direct efficiently as a voiceover artist has always been a really important skill, but especially with the recent rise of home studios. Therefore, I thought what I'd try and do is distill my top 10 tips on self-direction, and also it's probably something to bear in mind if you're a producer and you want to prep as thoroughly as possible before handing your project over to a voiceover talent. Tip 1. Check for sense and pronunciation. Now, this is something that a voiceover artist should do anyway, making sure that they know how to say every single thing in the text and that they understand what they're saying as well. But whereas in a directed session, you ultimately have a director who will give you feedback if you're doing anything wrong, in a self-directed session, the responsibility is firmly on your shoulders. So as a result, you need to be sure that you're asking the right questions in advance. So even if that means checking with a client directly, or it means going to a website like Forvo to check pronunciation, or online dictionaries, if you have any uncertainty about the sense of something or the pronunciation of something, then always record an alternate. Tip 2. Offer to do a sample read before actually recording. And this is incredibly important for long form narration, but for any project really, you should try and get into the habit of jumping on the mic as soon as you get some text and a brief, giving them 2 or 3 options so that there's actually something to feed back on, which is your voice. At the same time, you can use this as an opportunity, if the client hasn't already, to ask if there are any existing real-world examples that they use as a reference, or if they have any music that they know that they're going to be using or style that they're going to be echoing, so that you can keep that as a reference for the recording process yourself. Tip 3. Establish the technical and editing requirements in advance. And again, in terms of cultivating good habits, you should always try and record in as high a quality as possible, because then you can always break it down to a lower quality if that's what the client actually wants in the end, but it means that you've always got that as a backup, which will be invaluable. But also, you want to make it very clear in terms of if they expect the audio to be split up in a particular way, because again, that means that you can run your self-directed session accordingly. So if they require file separation, you know to put markers down in certain sections. Tip 4. Have a very clear revision and pickup policy. Now, this is something that should be inbuilt to your contracts and agreements in all of your voiceover work anyway, but especially with self-directed work, it is crucially important that this is a very clear process. When someone is directing you, then they can always ask for alternates on the fly, or if they want retakes. But when you're submitting something in self-direct, all of the feedback is going to be after the recording session. So you need to actually have your policy of how you deal with pickups and adjustments very, very clear, especially if there's a potential for feedback to come way after the original recording session. Tip 5, related to pickups, is making sure you make a note of your distance to the mic when you are actually voicing that project, and also what your physical position is, whether or not you're sitting or you're standing. In the cases where you do have to make a pickup, and sometimes it could be weeks, months, or sometimes even years after the event, then it's your job to replicate your original sound as seamlessly as possible. Ultimately, that responsibility relies with you. So, assuming that your recording space is roughly the same, and if you think it's going to change, make a note of that as well, that you need to make sure roughly what your mic proximity is, what you're actually recording it on, and whether or not there's any particular extreme physicality that you're using. Tip 6. Don't try to listen and direct at the same time. When you step up to the mic to perform, then focus on performing. Who are you talking to? Why? What is it that you're trying to get out of them? What is your objective, essentially? Don't be thinking about all of the technical aspects or whether or not take 1 was better than take 3. Then, once you've finished your recording of a particular section, that's the time to step back, look objectively at what you've recorded, and then you can make your notes. It's impossible to do both these jobs well simultaneously, so instead work on creating a rhythm of record, listening, editing, record, listening, and editing. Tip 7. When you are listening back, remember the Viper checklist. Volume, intention, pace, energy, and range. It is these 5 elements that are going to be responsible for making your performance what it should be. So always consciously listen back with at least one, if not all of these things in mind. Listen back with intention. Tip 8. Ensure that there are no mistakes. The buck stops with you. If you send anyone a self-directed recording which actually has mistakes in it, then that's just going to look unprofessional. So always have a minimum of 2 listens through. One, when you're actually following along with the text to make sure that there are no inaccuracies or misspeaks, and then at least one more listen through when you're paying attention to the Viper, the performance elements of the piece. Tip 9. Have a very clear labeling system. Quite often a client will say that there's a specific way that they want the file to be delivered and also how they want it to be labeled. So make sure that you observe that exactly. Otherwise it can be a nightmare for them and their respective workflow as well. And finally, tip 10. Deliver ahead of time and in the format requested. Obviously, time is money, so the sooner that you can actually make that delivery, the more that you'll be appreciated by the end client. They'll have additional time to review. If there are any issues, that they can highlight them. The whole workflow, there's an obvious benefit. But also pay specific attention to how they want to receive the files. If they want it uploaded to a Dropbox, if they want it specifically via WeTransfer, if they want it attached to an email, or if they want to use a third-party program that you've never heard of and is a real hassle for you to use. Still do it because it's the client's workflow, not yours ultimately. I hope those tips have been of some use to you, whether or not you're a voice talent or you're a producer giving a project over to a voice talent in any way. And if you can think of something that I've forgotten, and I'm sure there are many things, then please do let me know in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please do like and subscribe and spread the word if you did. Take care, and I look forward to seeing you next time.